When I was diagnosed with cancer, I was 33 years old. And at that time in my life, my husband and I had just decided that we wanted to start trying to build our family, to have a child. And obviously, a lot of things changed. So, one of the many decisions I needed to make at that point in my life was what I'm going to do about removing the cancer from my breast. What kind of surgery am I going to have? And since I hadn't had the opportunity to have children yet, one of the things that was really on my mind was breastfeeding and the opportunity to have that experience myself and the opportunity to provide our little some nourishment from my body. And it was a really challenging time. I took in a lot of information from professionals. I asked a lot of questions of women who had been through surgery before me and their experiences and their thoughts and their feelings. So there's a lot of factors that played into my decision. If you haven't watched the video I created a little while ago talking about choosing a breast conservation surgery or a single mastectomy, I will link it above. I'm not going to get into that today, but ultimately, in the end, I did decide to have a single mastectomy. So this did provide me the opportunity to try breastfeeding when we were able to have children down the road. And it is now 5 years later. And finally, that opportunity arose. So I went into this experience very open-minded. I know that for a number of reasons, breastfeeding is very challenging and doesn't always work for everybody. So I kept that in mind. But I was very, very hopeful. But like I said, also open-minded to whatever ended up working best for our babe and my body and just the journey that was going to take us in. One of the big questions I had and I was curious about was if I were to be able to breastfeed, if my babe and I physically were able to do that together with one functioning breast, would I be able to feed my baby solely and exclusively with my breast milk? Now, 5 years later, I finally came to the point in my life, which I'm so excited that we did have a babe, and I got to see if we would be able to breastfeed together. My heart was set on it, but I was also very aware that for a number of reasons it might not work out for babe and I. And I was okay with that, but extremely hopeful. So I do want to say that I am very thankful to be able to share with you that we were able to breastfeed, and it was incredible. I am very thankful for the opportunity to share that experience with my son. It was a long time coming, and yeah, it was a big deal. So as I mentioned, I wanted to create this video to share some tips with you. So if you happen to be in this situation where you're gonna have a babe and you had a single mastectomy and you're going to be doing some breastfeeding or hoping to, I want to let you know the things that I did that led us to be able to exclusively breastfeed with only one functioning breast. So I do want to say I am not a lactation specialist. I am not a physician. I am not medically trained in this area. So please take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. Take it from, one mom to another, just sharing some things that work for me. And I hope if this situation applies to you, that they also help you as well. I knew that this wasn't going to be an easy feat because typically one would have two functioning breasts, but in this case we just had one. So I really was open to doing what I needed to do in order to support my body and support our babe to get the nutrients that he needed. So the first thing that I decided to do was express colostrum. I decided to start working to express colostrum about a week and a half before our due date. And I'm not going to get into how to do that because there are lots of really good videos on YouTube. And basically what I did was look up a good video and learn how to express colostrum. So I started a week and a half before our due date, and then I ended up being 9 days late. So I had quite a few days to be able to work on that. And I did work on that twice a day, most days. And I will tell you that I didn't get enough colostrum to collect it, but I was able to get, I would say, I don't know, I was going to say quite a bit, but I was able to get enough that I considered collecting it. But I just found it really awkward to get the syringe and try to, do the things with just two hands. So I didn't end up collecting any, but I do believe that that was one of the first starting blocks that supported my body to get this breastfeeding process on the move. The second thing is not so much a tip, but I just have to say that I'm so thankful for the nurse that supported us when we were trying to figure out this breastfeeding thing after giving birth. She was very dedicated and very sure that I was going to be able to breastfeed. So I think just having someone in my corner that was just so positive and just so sure that we were going to be able to figure it out, that our baby boy was going to be able to latch, that, it was going to work. That was huge for me. He didn't figure it out right away. It took some support for an entire day to figure it out. And even the next day we needed this support as well. And I don't know if that's a long time, but I know that for me, because it was such a big deal to me, I found that challenging. I found it disheartening when it wasn't working right away, when we needed to make a few modifications to help him be able to latch. So I guess I just want to say to you, breastfeeding with one functioning breast is possible. If it is very important to you, keep at it and bring on different support teams. The hospital did have a lactation specialist, and I know that you can outsource lactation specialists from the general community as well. So get someone in your corner that really believes that you can do it, and keep them there in your corner and listen and keep at it. One of the things I found really interesting about breastfeeding that I never considered in the past was you have no idea how much milk they're getting, because they could be just pacifying on your breast. They could be, getting a little bit of milk, but then it runs out. So I found that really, really confusing and really, really hard to know what's going on. So what we ended up doing in the hospital was he would breastfeed, or he would be on my breast for about 15 minutes. We would time it. If he, popped off, we'd get him back on and just keep on getting him to work through it for about 15 minutes. And then we would do a bottle top up. And the bottle wasn't anything special. It was, just one of those cylinder bottles. It didn't look like a breast or anything. And he got a top up with donated breast milk, which I was very appreciative to get from the hospital. I never realized before having a baby as well that there's a lot of pressure and worry about the baby gaining weight. And honestly, I get it. It makes sense. But aside from that nurse, who was very positive and very helpful and believed in us, I felt like there was a lot of doubt, a lot of worry that I would be able to provide enough milk to feed my baby, and I just didn't understand it. I've always kind of thought that the body would produce what the baby would need, and that could be completely wrong. But I had belief in my body that if our baby and my body were able to make that connection, if breastfeeding was able to work on a physical level, that my body would be able to produce enough milk. I wasn't worried about it. So ultimately, I decided to just keep on believing and trusting in my body. So we did end up continuing with the top up, and we received home visits as well as doctor visits to make sure that our baby was gaining weight. Leaving the hospital, we were recommended to continue to breastfeed for 15-20 minutes and then give a 30 milliliter top up of formula, because we didn't have any donated breast milk to go home with. So we did that for 2 weeks. Within those 2 weeks, our baby gained a lot of weight. I was told that as a newborn baby, 30 grams a day of weight gain is considered a healthy amount of weight gain, though there is a dip often when they are first born, but coming back up after those first few days. Our baby was gaining 100 grams every day. So he was getting a lot of nourishment. So once we got that final weigh in after 2 weeks and he was doing very well, I started weaning off the formula and the top up bottle feed. So we took it down to 20, we took it down to 15, we took it down to 10, and then finally just breastfeeding. And that was just so incredible. I felt like I was just so proud of my body, so proud of my baby for being able to produce that milk and being able to, I don't know, it just felt so right, and I was so thankful to be able to do that. So the final thing physically that I did to help my body to produce that extra milk for him, once he was done feeding, once he showed signs that he was done, I would often pass Babe off to my husband to do the burping, and he got to do the cuddling, and I would put on the breast pump and power pump after to get my body used to producing more milk. Now, I will say, out of all of the things, that was the most challenging piece of the puzzle for me because, well, a couple of things. One, I wanted to do the snuggles and the cuddling and the burping after breastfeeding, like how he just folds right into you, and it's so sweet. So it was really hard for me to pass him off when I wanted those cuddles in order to do the pumping. And then my husband ended up going back to work. So I did get to do those cuddles and burping. But then the pumping would be pushed back because often he would nap after, and then an hour had passed and it's almost time to feed again. So I didn't want to pump then because I didn't want it to take away from what he was going to end up eating when he needed to breastfeed again. This was probably one of the more challenging pieces for me, to get that timing, to be diligent in continuing to build up that supply and demand need. But I think it was a very essential piece to taking us to a point where we were exclusively breastfeeding. I hope that this was helpful for you today. I hope you picked up some tips. I hope that, if anything, you have some extra belief in knowing that if you are going into breastfeeding with one functioning breast, that it is possible to exclusively breastfeed your baby. So thank you for being here with me today. I welcome you to like this video. I welcome you to hit subscribe, as I'll continue to come here and share videos with helpful information to help you as a new mama, as a breast cancer survivor, or as someone going through the breast cancer journey. Take care of yourselves. I wish you all the best, and we'll see you next time.